Shalom. Shabbat shalom to everyone. Good morning to you on this Saturday, Sabbath morning. This is the week of Parsha number 29, which is Acharei in Hebrew. It's Leviticus chapter 16, verse 1 through chapter 18, verse 30. It's where we start back up in the middle of the Torah, where we start back up after the great redemption series of days that we've been experiencing. Passover, we took a break from our Torah readings and we ended off with Parsha Metzora, which ended with Leviticus 15. We ended our session, we took a hiatus or a break. We stepped aside to get a glimpse of where we've been and where we're going. We began to catch our breath, so to speak, and receive a new infilling of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, to awaken our senses, our spiritual senses, to be able to ascertain the beauty and the wisdom of the words that the Holy One is teaching us and will teach us, beginning with Acharei, going through Kedoshim, and more, the rest of the parshas of Leviticus, all the way through. We're going to have a long season where we won't have these interruptions until we get to Shavuot, and that will be when we break between Sefer Leviticus, Sefer Vayikra Leviticus, and Sefer Bamidbar, Book of Numbers. But right now we're back. We're back after this hiatus. We should have visions of redemption running through our head. Not only from the last Torah portion we read, the healing of the Metzora, the idea of the two birds and one being killed, dying, but the other one, the partner, the twin, the new life force breaking forth, flying free. I hope you have that image of this bird dipped in the blood, carrying forth the redemption story into the world. This is who we are. And so we'll have another story like that today with two goats. The same basic storyline as we pick back up into our studies this year, get back out of the redemption sequence of holiday mode into the Torah studies again. We'll sort of repeat the story. This time it'll be two goats as opposed to two birds, two turtle doves. Now, I want us to get that picture that we are coming out of a time of great redemption, restoration. That's what the Parsha of Metzora was all about. It wasn't about how sick people can get. It wasn't about how badly they can behave or how badly they can speak and how horrible it all is. No, it's about the redemption story. The idea of the Metzora, the plan of God, is that no one has to die that way. No one should have to end their life that way. That should be a phase that they go through, a process that they overcome, and then they become like the free bird flying that we talked about at the end of Metzora, like the goat released into the wilderness, as it will be today's story. So, beginning with Parsha Acharei, we start back into this season of building back the leaven of heaven into our lives, replacing the unclean, the impure, the devastatingly destructive and divisive leaven of Egypt and the other lands in which we live, the cultures, the societies in which we are immersed. We are going to put on holiness. We're going to put on beauty. We're going to put on majesty. We're called to put on the garments of heaven and wear them in front of the peoples of the earth with calmness, with dignity, also with humility, and with gentleness, and with kindness, and with love. That's a big order to do. So he's going to give us instructions, beautiful life instructions. They will be insulting to our minds in many cases. They will insult our pseudo-intelligence. We'll think we're better educated than this. But he says, no, you don't understand humanity the way I understand humanity. You don't understand what works with humanity the way I understand what works with humanity. You don't understand what works with the creation that I've instilled, the ecosystem that I've developed for mankind to live in. The beauty of creation. You don't understand what makes it tick and what makes it die. And I do. And so you're going to have to listen to trust me that I know what I'm talking about, both with regard to what works with humanity and what works with your created ecosystem that you deal with. And I want to give you instructions, he would say, to be able to handle these things well and steward them well and represent him well in them. So part of what we talk about today will be what I call our national, universal actually, Dependence Day. Most cultures, most nations have developed an Independence Day, whether it's Cinco de Mayo in Mexico or you don't name your country where you live. There's some kind of special recognition of a day, generally speaking, where the nation became free. The nation it becomes its own entity. Well, it becomes who it was created to be, or at least in the minds of the designers of the nation, it was created to be. Well, we in the Hebrew nation, we in the culture of Abrahamic covenant, we also have a day like that, but it's not an Independence Day. It is a Dependence Day. It is a time when we acknowledge our total dependence upon the Creator of the universe and His words and His wisdom and His counsel and His presence with us and His instructions for living as to how we can survive. That's our Dependence Day. And that Dependence Day is Yom Kippur. It is the 10th day of the 7th month of the world calendar, of the creation calendar. That means, we're going to be dealing with it in about 4 or 5 months. Actually, 5 months. Now, that being the case, we're looking ahead. Why are we looking ahead so far? Why are we here in the last day of the month of Aviv, or Nisan, right before the new moon that leads us into the second month of the biblical year actually it's the covenant people's year, which is coming up very soon, probably tonight. That moon will be sighted. Now, that being the case, why are we looking way ahead to the Day of Atonement, which is the 10th day of the 7th month, which is so far away from us? Now, I would like to discuss with you the reason we're looking ahead. I hope you understand that we're going somewhere. This is not living day by day, not knowing what's coming tomorrow. We understand in the covenant that there are cycles and there are seasons, and we will face a day which will be our National Dependence Day on the 10th day of Tishrei, or the 7th month of the biblical year. That is coming for us, and so now we have a few months to prepare for that. How should we walk in light of the fact that we will have this special, it's called by many people the Day of Judgment. Because they don't understand it the way we understand it. We understand it as the day of our redemption. They understand it as the day of judgment. They think that you only get what's coming to you on that day. If that were the case, we would be here. No one would be here. We don't get what's coming to us. We get a perfect measuring and balancing between what is coming to us and the mercies and the kindnesses and the wisdom of God. Those combinations of things mean we get redemption. And that redemption is what we have. That's the story we tell to the world. That's the good news. That's the glorious wisdom of the heavens, that He is not bound by what men think of as justice. He is not bound by what men think of as getting what you deserve. He's not bound by karma. He is not bound by those concepts of foreign ideas and humanism and mankind's ideas of what's right and wrong and fair and unfair, what should happen. He lives according to what will make his ecosystem flourish and what will make the mankind species that He created and He loves so much reach its ultimate potential, return to the Garden of Eden. And that is what He is gearing everything towards, His grand plan for the redemption of mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline, household by household, individual by individual, and for the great redemption and restoration of the created order of creation itself, hillside by hillside, valley by valley, ocean by ocean, continent by continent, land by land portion by land portion, to its original intended state of beauty and fruitfulness and shalom and harmonious interaction, the Edenic state. That's what He's going toward. Now, if we have that vision, we won't just react, knee-jerk reactions to everything that takes place around us. We won't let our emotions and our hormones begin to tell us what we should be focusing our attention and our passion and our energy and spending our money and our time doing. Instead, we will remember we're under orders. We're under instructions from the Creator of the universe. We have an assignment, and we have been forgiven much, and we will be forgiven much, and we have been restored from places where the worst what levels of humanity have had their power and their say over us. We've been in bondage in Egypt, of all places, and in captivity in Babylon. We have been in Roman occupation. We understand the degradation that humanity can inflict upon us, and yet we are still called to love, and yet we are still called to model and emanate the radiant beauty and holiness of God into the world. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. And this is the idea of what we're going to be doing for the next few months. All right. The theme of the book that we're in, obviously, the book of Leviticus, as it's called in English, or actually from the Latin, but the book is named really is Sefer Vayikra, as we've talked about before in these sessions. And Vayikra means "and he called." So we're talking about the call of the Creator of the universe upon our life. Well, I like to liken it to the call of a bridegroom to his bride. We see that imagery portrayed in the Song of Solomon. We see it portrayed in different locations in the parables that Messiah taught, Yeshua taught when he was on the earth. The call of the bridegroom to his bride. What would the bridegroom say to his bride people? What does he wish for his bride people? What does he want from his bride people? What do you think? Well, the call is stated sort of succinctly in the text of Sefer Vayikra. It is, "Be holy as I am holy," or "become holy." It's not an order. It's not a commandment in that sense. There's no way you can command someone to be holy. It is the same empowerment of "be light." Light be. In the first statement that the Creator of the universe made, that was recorded in history, light be, light become. And that's the idea of us. He's telling us, to his bride people, to the people of the covenant, the seed of Abraham, both natural and engrafted into the Abrahamic line. Be holy, not order you to be holy, look some sort of and be empowered and transformed by, and transform your environment through receiving the energy of the holy to become holy. Because he is holy. We are with him, and we are doing what he's doing, being as he is whenever we're with him. So, in this week's discussions, we'll be going deeper into the idea of becoming holy as he is holy, and letting his holiness begin to flood over us in multiple areas, in different phases and stages, at levels of life, real-time activities upon the earth, what it means to receive, embrace, and to begin to move with, flow with, and radiate with that holiness. Going deeper. So we're going to journey beyond the veil and picture the highest realm of divine eminence. You remember back on Mount Sinai. This just to sort of catch you up. Back on Mount Sinai, the Holy One says, set boundaries for the people not to go beyond them. Come up the mountain to me. Come close to me. But then set boundaries where they don't get to the highest realm or the highest levels of divine eminence, where the power, the energy of the radiating holiness of God is pulsing out. Don't get to the deepest levels of that. They're not ready to receive that. They can't channel it. They can't handle it. So therefore, set the boundaries. Well, the same thing happened with regards to the tabernacle. When the tabernacle was designed, or the architectural picture was shown to the heavenly throne room to Moshe, he had these patterns, these different sections, different levels, these boundary lines of approaching the Holy One's radiating, pulsing, imminent power. And so in the center point of the tabernacle, at the very heart of it, it was the Ark of the Covenant, obviously, within which was the 2 tablets of the Torah, and then above it was the mercy seat. We see this picture of the balance between mercy and justice, or the mercy and wisdom in this process. And so now then on top of that, that's where the throne of the Holy One was. The angels, the cherubim, stretched out wings, made the back of a seat for a throne of the Holy One, and he sits enthroned among his people, but he's behind these barriers. He's behind these boundary lines. He is not approachable in his eminence at just any time, as he'll say to Moshe, to tell Aaron this week as we start this Parsha. He's going to say, do not approach the ultimate, the highest realm of divine eminence just any time or any way you please. This is too powerful for you unless you are prepared and carry the instrumentalities of holiness with you where the holiness can attach to the holiness as opposed to holiness attaching to the uncleanness of your being, of who you are in the flesh, or the profanity or commonness of who you are in the natural, in the pseudo-intellect as you operate. He said those things will be fried or not be able to handle the power emanating from my presence. And so come with protocols, come with the correct, with the holy things with you when you come. And that will be, of course, the blood of the and the incense. Two things maybe, but basically the blood of the presentation of the korbanot and the incense, cloud of smoke. Aaron is going to be told that on this one special day a year, Yom Kippur, the one we're looking forward to, the day of our redemption, the day of our dependence, our national dependence, recognition of dependence upon the Holy One. On that day, the Aaron is to not only take blood with him from the brazen altar, but he's also to take with him a censer. He's going to take coals of hot coals from the brazen altar, and he's going to take incense that is used on the golden altar of incense, and he's going to take those, put the incense upon the coals that are in the censer, create a great cloud of beautiful, sweet-smelling, fragrant smoke, and it covers him, and he is going then to pass through the veil, the last boundary, with these holy things with him as he goes, and he will be received by the Holy One. And we will see what happens, hopefully, in that time frame. Meanwhile, something's supposed to happen in the community. We're not going with him, except representationally. He goes on our behalf, and he takes blood on our behalf as well. And he takes smoke and incense on behalf of our behalf as well. But we are doing something else. We're doing this thing called denying self. We're fasting on that day. And that day, we rehearse basically our death. If we were going to get what we would deserve, based on what we did in the previous year, then we know this would be our day of death. But we also know this, that the Holy One is merciful, compassionate, slow to anger, forgiving of sin and wickedness, and even downright rebellion. Now, this is who he is. So we have confidence, yet we have trepidation. We know what we deserve, but we know what he is willing to give. So we're learning about what we're going to do to journey beyond the veil to the highest realm of divine eminence and what it means for us. And also, because of that, we're going to learn that he has wisdom for us to understand how to navigate through the powerful flesh traps, the serpentine snares of this earth that cause us to leak the kedusha, the energy of holiness that he presents to us. And leak it, and actually into absorb the uncleanness, absorb the tumah, absorb the common and profane things of this earth. And he knows how to teach us how to navigate the trap doors, navigate the snares, get through this without letting our kedusha leak out or letting us be corrupted by tumah, uncleanness, or profanity. I call it this latter part of what we're doing here, navigating the flesh traps and navigating the serpentine snares, learning to gentle your wild horses. You have, like you have wild horses inside of you, or hormones that go crazy, or emotions that do not stay, that allow you to keep your shalom. You have these things. You have these appetites and these urges in your flesh. You have these pseudo-intellectual ideas and concepts and abstract theories. You have all this stuff going on, swimming in your wild horses. This is part of becoming holy as he is holy. This is part of the themes of being able to prepare ourselves to journey into the highest realms of divine eminence and go to our national day of dependence, Yom Kippur. The tent maker's dream includes that we should be able, that he, through teaching us and training us as a master teaches his disciples or his apprentices, that he can teach us how we can approach his highest levels of divine eminence. How and when and with what methodologies and instrumentalities to approach his highest levels of eminence, where we receive the highest infusion of the power and the wisdom and the goodness and the Kedusha energy of the Holy One? How can he teach us how to not be lost along the way, broken down like Nadav and Abihu, by teaching, who tried to carry the world's ways into this highest realm of eminence? He's got ways of teaching us. And so this tent maker's dream that caused him to have us build the tabernacle in the first place, the reason he wanted this tent in the middle of the wilderness where he could indwell with us and indwell in us, was to teach us how we can approach him and then to stand in his presence or fall on our face in his presence but not be fried, to be like the burning bush, to be burning but not consumed. And so to approach his holiness and his divine eminence and absorb the energy pulsing into it, and then begin to resonate in tune with it, in tone with it, in frequency with it, and radiate the energy and radiate the beauty and the holiness and represent the King's highest levels of eminence and radiation of holiness into the world in its natural state. That is our calling. Remember, Kedusha, which is the discourse we're in, the great Kedusha discourse, beginning with chapter 10 of Leviticus, going all the way through chapter 24 of Leviticus, basically, is this great download of divine speech that is uninterrupted, and we're in the middle of it. Kedusha, the substance of it is what is and how do we deal with the transformative energy that radiates and pulses from the manifest presence of the Creator. If he's going to dwell among us, if he's going to dwell in us, then how do we not collapse under the pressure, under the power, under the beauty and the majesty and the goodness and the holiness of who he is? And how do we carry that into the world? All right. The first stunning revelation download of this parsha is found in Leviticus 16, verse 2. It's the Holy One speaking, of course. This is the divine discourse. And he says, tell Aharon, he's talking to Moshe, tell Aharon, your brother, not to come at just any time into the holy place, the Kadosh. We usually translate it as the holy place. Not to come at just any time into the holy place. This is the highest level of divine emanation. That is inside the veil, that is before the mercy seat, which is on the ark. So I've told you the location. This is the physical coordinates and geographical location, latitude and longitude, as it were, of where he is talking about this divine eminence of his power and his majesty will be. Do not tell Aaron not to come at just any time into the holy place inside the veil before the mercy seat, which is on the ark, lest he die. And the imagery he has just pictured out is happened Acharei mot Nadav and Abihu, after the death of Nadav and Abihu. They are the picture of what happens to you in this scenario if you don't follow the protocols. If you choose instead to just do it the way you've seen it done in Egypt, like the priest of On and the various different Egyptian deities were done. They took up incense in their censers, and they did their own thing to demonstrate, to show their piety and ooh woo 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 holiness. He said, no, you don't do those sorts of things, because if you do that, you'll be following the same imagery of Nadav and Abihu. It's very personal to Aaron. These were his oldest sons. So he says, don't come, tell him not to come at just any time into this place, which is by the ark, lest he die. And then he says, for I will appear. This is the Holy One speaking. I will appear in the cloud above the mercy seat. The first thing you should get in that, and hopefully we'll get it, is that he will appear. He will. This is not a matter of just faith. He will appear. He will manifest. He will take on some level of something we think of as corporeality, even though he is a spiritual being. He will appear and he will be seen. And he says, in the cloud. Where? In the cloud above the mercy. Remember that I told you one of the things that Aaron is supposed to take with him is the cloud, is the fire, the coals of fire, the incense. He's supposed to put the incense on the fire, and there is supposed to be this cloud. So I will appear in the cloud above the mercy seat. That's the first manifest. Now, the fact that he is going to appear, the fact that he is there and he can make himself manifest present with his whole of his radiating holiness, that should a little bit make us nervous, but make us very happy in the meantime. Now, our Creator, our God, is not just a figment of our imagination, something we believe in. He manifests himself. His manifest presence will come into our being and our national collective understanding and awareness. And his manifest presence, beloved, changes absolutely everything. Do you understand that without his manifest presence, we are just believers in a God. We're just believers in a moral code, perhaps. But with his divine presence, that changes everything. Do you understand the emanating power that radiates from his being? Do you understand the goodness that transforms and covers us? You know, we hear people talk about Miriam, the Mary, or as she's called, of Nazareth, and how the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, overshadowed her. Well, this is, and what happened to her as a result? Well, we're not going to be pregnant in that regard, but we will be pregnant in a spiritual sense of carrying the holiness of Messiah in us, this presence of the Holy One, the manifest, appearing presence of the Holy One in the cloud changes absolutely everything. It supercharges the atmosphere. That's just the environment around us. This is an environmental change. His presence, his manifestation supercharges the atmosphere with holiness. It sparks everything that is holy in the world, that he created in the world. All the sparks of divine holiness and eminence that he designed into the world begin to spark, and we see holiness begin to arise. And then he touches us. And then he touches us. Then he touches you. Then he touches me. Then he touches humanity in ways that begin to spark the divine sparks of holiness, to ignite and blow a breath upon the divine embers of holiness that he's designed into us. The eternal things, the beautiful things of life that he designed into us that are somewhat hidden under the ashes, under the clouds, under the darkness of the corruption of uncleanness and of commonness and of overrun emotions, overwrought hormones, overwrought pseudo-intellectual ideas and ideologies and philosophies and religious concepts. These things begin to melt away whenever his manifest presence touches the holy that he designed into us. Well, this is what happens. He supercharges the atmosphere, but he supercharges us. He changes us from the inside out. He touches us, and we become radiating, pulsing, emanating sources, republications, repeaters of his holiness. So every time his manifest presence comes, he raises the bar, and he raises the stakes for the world and for us. Now his holiness, we carry a level of his holiness that is must be treasured and cherished and careful. This is like we're carrying nitroglycerin. You just be careful how you handle it, or high explosives, volatile explosives. This is all designed for good, but boy, if you don't treat it right, we have this level of holiness. Selah, Selah. So in his manifest presence, when he comes, he activates potential that has been hidden and laying dormant in us. Do you know that you are filled with levels of hope and potential and possibilities that have just never been tapped yet? Or if they've been tapped, they've been forgotten and laid aside and put on the back burner. He says, no, I'm going to come and awaken them in you. I want to awaken you to the you that I created you to be, that I designed you to be, to the beauty of the person that you are uniquely put on earth at such a time as this to be, and to release the beauty and the holiness and the goodness and the gentleness and the kindness and the wisdom that I intended for you to release upon earth, and that nobody else can do the way I designed you to do it. Well, yes, he's going to reactivate us in our potential. He's going to redefine for us what we perceive as possible, no, essential, inevitable. What is inevitable is the redemption of mankind as a species. What is inevitable is the restoration of all created order to its original intended state of beauty, fruitfulness, and shalom. The question is now not a matter of what's going to happen, it's how it's going to happen and what will be the part that we play in it. What he does is redefine things for us as far as potential, but he also shows us what will which is translated in English as evil, but it's really a matter of that which is destructive, causes confusion, causes conflicting loyalties, That's Ra. That's from the Ra spectrum all the way into the realm of uncleanness, of tumah, which is corruptive, then into the realm of that which is profane, which is anti-holiness, which is the serpent's antidote to the power of holiness, then into the issue of toivah. Things included in this fault will be cultural, ethnocentric, and ideological arrogance. Oh, that's so rampant in the world today. I'll repeat it. Cultural, ethnocentric. That's a hard word for me to say. I want to try again. Cultural, ethnocentric, and ideological arrogance. And also includes voyeuristic folly. Oh, I want to, I don't have time to talk about this, and I won't talk about it. You know what I'm talking about. The world wants its jollies, and the jollies are the follies. Well, also uncontrolled appetites and uncontrolled emotions and unharnessed hormones. These are the things that are driving the world crazy. And these are the things that His Holiness needs to touch, to transform, to bring back into a realm of functionality again. Of course, serpentine cynicism and serpentine rebellion are at the outermost edges or range of the Ra spectrum. But in His divine presence, the light is too bright for anything to remain hidden. Any of these uncleanness, any little spots or blemishes that we may have in us, in just His light is too bright for anything to remain hidden. The fire that He is burning, the consuming fire that He is, the burning bush level fire that He is too intense for the things that are wood, hay, and stubble in our lives not to spontaneously combust. That's why there must be boundaries. That's why there must be ways and protocols by which we reach and touch the highest levels of eminence. That's why only one day a year on Yom Kippur, on the Day of Atonement, do we actually follow these protocols and receive what's going to be the mixture of mercy with divine justice. Now, if as a people we are going to abide in this close proximity to the manifest presence of the holy and eternal God, we have to adopt a new normal. We have to adapt our lives and adjust our lives and acclimate our lives to that new level of normal. That new level of normal will involve a heightened level of awareness and vision for the purpose of why we're here, and a heightened level of accountability. I call it instant, daily, momentary accountability for carrying this level of holiness and into the world. The greatest lesson of what happened in Nadab and Abihu, which is the way we start our discussion today, is that we as custodians of heaven's energy, flame, and Kedusha have a responsibility, a powerful responsibility to the Holy One and to the great mission that we're called to ourselves, to our bloodlines, to our families and our houses, and to the entire ecosystem to which we are called to nurture. We have a responsibility to exercise extreme diligence and caution and be sober and be full of shalom and joy and hope every time we encounter the world. Every time, especially when we encounter the traps, the flesh traps, we encounter the serpentine snares, the volatile, explosive, flammable substances and situations and subjects and people of this world in their fallen state. When we encounter these things, we need to be extremely cautious and extremely committed, submitted, and dependent upon the Holy One in order to bring these things forth in a way that doesn't create havoc. So, I'm going to move forward with you. The opening lines of Acharei are Vayadaber Adonai El Moshe Acharei Shnei Bnei Aaron Bekorvatam Lifnei Adonai Vayamutu. And it says, and the Holy One spoke to Moshe after the deaths of Aaron's two sons, who died when making approach to the presence of the Holy One. Okay, so we're talking now about the protocols for entering and drawing strength from the highest realm of divine eminence. How do we approach the King? How do we draw down heaven into earth without losing our identity and our purpose and our mission down here? It starts in the seen realm with a series of what I call essential realm travel preparations. Essential realm travel preparations. If you want to go on a road trip, if you want to go on a journey, a pilgrimage, you need to prepare for the journey. Well, these are our essential realm travel preparations because we're going into the realm of the highest eminence. And the first thing is the avodat hakorbanot. In Hebrew, that's what it says. In English, we would say the service of the surrogates, or the service of the offerings. I think the English language would really, King James, Old English would tell you that. The service of realizing that there is a price to be paid for the things that we do, even if we do not pay it. The world around us and the things close to us will pay the price. Avodat hakorbanot, the service of surrogates, the service of the price paid. And you see that in chapter 16, verses 3 and 6. Realize that Aharon is told to bring some things with him. And he's going to particularly bring the blood of a young bull as a korban hata'at and of a ram as a korban olah. These two different types of approaches combined on this special day of atonement on Yom Kippur as we enter the highest realm of divine eminence he does on our behalf on that day. The blood of a young bull as a korban hatat, which is whenever we deal with the hole in our soul that is caused by not respecting and honoring the instructions of living, the Torah of God, whenever we don't appreciate his word for being the wisdom that it is, and instead we choose to interpret it our way or make it happen our way. This is the idea of the blood of the young bull as a korban hatat. That we understand that something has to pay the price for every time we have stepped outside the realm of what his word has told us. And also there's to be the blood that he's supposed to carry as his instrumentalities of holiness. Blood of a ram as a korban olah. Olah is the methodology of approach, the protocol of approach that is designed to say that our failures of will, whenever our will did not coincide with the will of the Father for our life. And so we followed our will and our intentions and our desires. We have deviated from his divine will, and we have left a hole in our soul because we keep looking for something else to define what our will is. And he says, no, your will and my will should be the same. Well, you have to bring something to atone for the word rejection, the word deviations, and the will deviations, and those are the things he talks about. Okay, that's personal. One for Aaron himself, and one for the people. So he's doing this. There is someone taking this responsibility for us. Now we see Aaron, but we look through. Every picture tells a story in Torah, especially in the tabernacle system. Every picture is real. It's actually happening, but it's telling a story that's happening in heaven. And the one in heaven is not Aaron. The one who's doing this for us in the great heavenly realm, by the throne of God in the heavenly tabernacle, is the Holy One himself. Is Yeshua himself, the Master himself. He is being our high priest in that process. We see all about this in the book of Hebrews, but it doesn't change what happens on the earth. It does say that in the heavenlies, it's not Aharon that does these things for us. He is merely a picture of the great priest who is Messiah. So the first thing is, this is personal for us, and for Aaron as well as for us. Second thing is, there's two tiers. There's two levels of it. There's the blood of the hatat, of the one who deals with the fact that we've not followed his word, and the one that deals with the olah, the blood of the olah, which is we have not followed his will. We even sought to understand his will. We've sought the serpentine's suggestions as to what his will is. So it's two-tiered, it's personal, it's also jurisdictional. Without these things, without the blood of the young bull as a korban hatat, and without the blood of a ram as a korban olah, this highest level approach, the deepest levels of divine eminence, cannot be touched by humanity. This jurisdiction has to happen before we can get there. Before entering the highest realm, we must have these things. Now the next thing after Korbanot is Avodat HaBegadim. If we're going to come into this environment of extreme holiness, if we're going to take the highest levels of Kedusha that the Holy One wants to give to us, if we're going to reach the master level on this, at least on this one day a year that we can carry with us and spread out through the rest of the year, if this is going to happen, then we must be dressed accordingly. This is Avodat HaBegadim, the service of appropriate apparel. Yeshua told wedding parables and talked about the garment, the wedding garment. Well, this is the idea. Well, if you're going to come into a very powerful place, a place of great testimony and joy, you must come in dressed appropriately. And so for Aaron, the picture we see on earth, again, every picture tells a story. Something we see on earth, we should look through the telescope lens to see what's going on in heaven. And in earth it says that Aaron is to put on his holy linen tunic and have the linen trousers on his flesh, on his basar, and he is to gird himself about with a linen sash, and with a linen turban he is to wrap his head, and these are to be the begadei kodesh, the garments of kedusha. This everything has to be about kedusha touching kedusha rather than touching our flesh. So these are begadei kodesh, garments of kedusha. And he says before he puts them on, he is to wash, he's to make a mikvah, to wash his body in water. It's not about taking a shower or a bath to get off excess dirt. It is about surrendering his body underneath, completely submersing his body in the water to return back to original pure state, totally surrendering, totally dependent upon the Holy One. When you're underwater and you can't breathe, you're totally dependent upon the Holy One. Well, that's what he is, and he put on these linen garments. Now, that's what Aaron, the high priest, is to do on this very special day. If we're going to approach the eminence, he must have on these linen items, and he must have the turban. These instrumentalities, the apparel of holiness must be upon him. Well, now we look at Yeshua. We look through the telescopic lens to what's really happening, to the greater picture of what's going on in the heavenly realms. And you see, he is dressed. He is dressed for the occasion. He is dressed in all the righteousness of because, what is fine linen? The book of Revelation defines it for you. It's the righteous acts of the saints. He is dressed in all of our righteous acts, all the things that we actually did right, according to his instructions, according to his plan, according to his protocols. He dresses himself in that, and he presents that himself in that to the creator of the universe. The third thing, after Avodat HaBegadim, is Avodat Ha'am, the service for, in Hebrew it says, Edut B'nai Israel, the witness throng of Israel, of the sons of Israel. We are a witness throng. That we're not just a people. We're not just a nation like other countries. We are a witness throng, a great cloud of witnesses. That's what we're called to be. Edut B'nai Israel. And this Edut B'nai Israel, for the fact of our witness, for the fact of our testimony to the world, this is the service for that. He is to take, and according to the Torah, it says he is to take from Edut B'nai Israel, from this great witness throng of Israel, three things. 2 kids of the goats. And those are for Korban Hatat. These are for us, these 2 kids of the goats. Remember the twin goats I told you about? We'll see one live and one die. One be like the 2 birds of Metzorah, cleansing protocols. That one goat will break free and go like a calf released from the stall, but the other one will pay the price. One has to live, one will die. There is a price to be paid for sin. And so the 2 kids of the goats for a Korban Hatat, and 1 ram for our Korban Olah. A ram will be taken for the Korban Olah. Reminiscent, obviously, of Yitzhak and the binding of Yitzhak on Mount Moriah, and the provision, supernatural provision of a ram by God. If God provided a ram for Yitzhak, then we are to provide a ram at this stage to follow in his footsteps. Okay, and so the presentation of the shirim, the goats, the 2 goats, is made, and the Hebrew says, before the face of the Holy One. I told you he will manifest, right? He will manifest in the cloud. He will appear, he said, in the cloud. Before the face of the Holy One, the presentation of these 2 goats. And it will happen at the entrance to the tent of meeting. So there will be an eminence that comes forth from the holy realm of the Holy of Holies all the way out to the entrance of the tent of meeting. This pulsing energy will pulse out there, and these two goats will be placed before them. And then as that happens, a lot will be assigned among the two goats. One of them will have a lot for Adonai, le Adonai, for the Holy One, and one will have a lot fall on it for La'azazel, and that will be to go Bamidbar, to go out in the wilderness. One will be free, one will be for the Holy One. And then we'll see Avodat HaMakta, the service of the censer. This is where the smoke comes in. The idea of the censer. In the heavenlies, what is he bringing with him? What is the Mashiach bringing with him into the holy place, into the very place of intimacy with the Father? What is he bringing with him? He's bringing his own people. He's bringing the great cloud of witnesses on, carrying them, as it were, on his shoulders. Okay, so we see this. Add the incense from the golden altar. You pass through the veil, and it makes this cloud of covering. And then that's why we don't come any other time, any other way. The cloud must be there, lest you die. And it says, no one else is supposed to be in the tent. No Adam. No one who breached protocol in the garden, who has the Garden of Eden fall on their resume, is to be allowed. That's not only the one dressed in the holy garments, carrying the instrumentalities of holiness, are to go into the tabernacle, the highest levels of the tabernacle. And then the Avodat HaZevakim, the slaughter, there must be an actual killing of the national hatat, the one goat that has La Adonai on it. And then the service of the sprinkling of blood will take place. Blood is sprinkled 7 times by a human finger. That's the thing about the Torah. Blood is so precious. Life is so precious that you don't just treat it. You don't get in a bucket and pour it. A fingertip. This is, I don't think people understand. I think the bloodiness of the tabernacle service, or of what they think of as the offerings and the sacrifices that were made, they don't understand them, and so they think it's just a bloody mess. No, the whole point of the Holy One is that the cultures of the nations do that. They are a bloody mess. But blood is so precious that you only take the tip of your finger, and only a splatter, only a sprinkle goes anywhere. That's now all that's necessary. Well, then we see that what happens is the levels of atonement are mediated. Atonement is mediated. Forgiveness, mercy, restoration, these are mediated through this protocol. The Hebrew phrase that's used is actually HaKedosh mitu'at b'nei Israel. HaKedosh mitu'at b'nei Israel. Literally translated, the tuma, or the uncleanness from the nation that surrounds the tabernacle and that would flow into the holy place if it didn't have the garments, instrumentalities of holiness to cover it. If it didn't have this atonement, the uncleanness of Israel would then pollute the world. And that's not what's going to happen. The uncleanness of Israel is going to be atoned for, covered, mediated, restored, healed. That's the message of the day. That's why we see the Day of Atonement not as a day of judgment. Although judgment is involved, it's a day of restoration, a day of redemption. It's a day of joy at the end, because we realize mercy has triumphed over the judgment we deserve. So we're going to see that the priest personally and his house and all of the assembly, or the collectivity, the called together ones of Israel, and even the physical locations within the tabernacle, the brazen altar, the tabernacle itself, the structure, the tents inside the structure, the priesthood, everything is covered. And it says also, Al Kol Am HaKa'al, all of those within the nation of the called out ones. All of us are covered by this protocol, by this cloud covered by the atoning touch, the mercy flowing out of the Holy One. He's going to atone for the physical locations of it. He's going to, and then it says, look at Azazel, the other goat. The other goat is brought live. Hands are laid upon the other goat. It is then, all of Israel's sins are then acknowledged to rest upon that, taken off of, but you have had your sin taken off of your shoulders. This is the picture. This is just, every picture tells a story. And if the high priest is doing it to a goat, and through your national sin, putting it on a goat on that day, think of what's happening in the heavenly realms. Think of how this is working with the great high priest covering you with your sin on that day. And so Avodat Hanatan, putting these iniquities on the goat to carry them out. You don't carry them. Someone else carries the burden. This is why he says, come unto me, all you who are weary and are heavy laden, for I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light, because you see he carries it and then we don't feel it. He's carrying these burdens for us. And then he entrusts it to the Biyad Ish, to the hand of a man. Into the hand of a man he entrusts this goat, and he sends it, Shalach, he sends it forth into the desert or the wilderness, Al-Aretz Gesuret, to a place that's devoid of life and of herbage. You see it now. So it's when men were sent out of the garden, right? It's very similar to that process. And there was only thorns and thistles, and men had to make something good of it, so it was this goat. Now there are legends, there are midrashes about what happened to the goat. There are even things contained in the Talmud about what happened to the goat. The Torah only says that he's to be released into the wilderness and go to a place where there is no life. And the implication is that he will bring that life, or he will not, as the case. It's the same thing with us. As we are sent forth into our wildernesses, as we're sent forth into our regions of thorns and thistles, of corruption and uncleanness, of serpentine snares, of flesh traps and pseudo-intellect traps in this world, we will either bring life to it and find life in it and emanate life around it and bring the holiness of God into it, or we will cause it to be worse than it already was when we got here. So the next thing that's talked about in verses 16, chapter 16, verse 23 is Avodat HaMikveh, the idea of when Aaron finishes these things, he is to take another mikveh, lay aside his garments, make a mikveh in kadosh water, in the Hamayim, living water, and then dress in the full regalia of the priestly garments again, not just the ordinary white linen, but now the full regalia of priestly garments. He puts them back on for his job. And then he does the other things. I want to move basically on to the next thing, which is rules of engagement. Now that we understand that we have been forgiven much, that we have received much mercy, that we have certain things on our collective and individual resumes that we're not proud of, but they have been forgiven. They have been taken care of by someone else. Now that we have that, we can step forth with humility and say, no, but now the will of the Father, the will of the Holy One for my life, the ways of the Holy One for my life, the words of the Holy One concerning my life, this is what I will follow. I delight to do your will, the Holy One would have us repeat as in Psalm 40 and as in Yeshua's statements. I delight to do your will, O God. Well, the first thing is to understand the value of human life and of animal life. We are not here to do our pleasure with regard to other human beings or with regard to the animals or even the plants of this world. We're not to be destructive influences here. Nefesh kol basar, the soul of all flesh is in its blood. The soul of all flesh is in its blood. Whoever eats, consumes, and devours it shall be cut off. This is not the way to follow the mercies and the kindnesses and the forgivenesses of God, is then to take and devour things of the blood of other people, or of even, I believe, of even plant life, but certainly of other animals. We're not designed to be bloodletters. We're to be protectors and lovers of life. Well, He says that the shedding of blood should only be to honor the Holy One. The only time we would ever shed blood is if the Holy One specifically instructs it and the Holy One specifically empowers it. It is all a matter of ecosystem management, and ecosystem management requires from time to time certain things be pruned and eliminated, but only according to his instructions and his protocols. We're not just to go willy-nilly crazy throughout the world with our pruning shears and start cutting things away because we don't like them. No, only that which is necessary as according to his instructions. So it says, Bnei Israel is to bring the carcasses that they slaughter in the open field, that they may bring them to the Holy One at the door of the tabernacle of meeting, to the Kohen, to the priest. And they are approached with them as if they were korbanot shlamim. Everything that we do kill, everything that we do shed the blood of, has to be presented to the Holy One. It is not something we just pat ourselves on the back and say, we got to take care of that. Anything that we kill is presented as a shlamim, and this is a fatted calf. And we want to share it with other people. We want to share its benefits, the flesh. And we don't talk about human beings. I'm not trying to go that with you. But the idea of any shedding blood, if it does not honor the Holy One, we should never, ever do it. And the way to honor the Holy One is to follow his instructions, not to follow our own feeling of what's right and wrong. It says, they, the people, shall no longer, if they realize how they've been forgiven much, and they realize how merciful I've been to them and how much I've awakened the good in them, they will no longer offer sacrifices to goat demons, to Sa'arim. They will no longer offer these sacrifices like the rest of the world does. We offer sacrifices in America. We offer all sorts of stuff, to money, to goods, to dreams, to time, to these gods of our society, these goat demons of American Western culture, or could happen in South Africa, could happen in the Philippines, could happen in Malaysia, or New Zealand, or in England, or in South America. Whatever your culture's gods are, your priority systems are, whatever they think of as success, people are offering to these demons, and they offer their money, their time, their energy, their passion, their focus, their thought processes, their evaluations. Everything is offered to them. And so even though we don't kill goats to goat demons, we do is we offer these sacrifices. They said, you shall no longer, if you realize that you've been forgiven much, then you shall no longer offer sacrifices to these goat demons, after whom you've played the harlot. This is part of our bondage, not part of our freedom. So this is to be a statute forever for them throughout the generations, he says. And he says, even if an animal is killed in the open field, this is when the tent of meeting is in place, when the tabernacle is in place. There's not one now, so we have to find another way. He says, whenever an animal is killed in the field, it is to be considered the killing of a fatted calf. The favorite man to do this is blood guilt, dam yakshev. It is blood guilt, and it is imputed to the person who did it. So he says, make sure that everything you treat with very much respect. You never kill unless you're bringing forth the honor of the Holy One according to his instructions. And then when you do, what you kill is spread and shared. You don't take the carcass or anything from it. You don't steal from it. Okay. Now, I want to carry on to some other things here. I want to talk to you about the central passage of this parsha, and we'll finish. This sort of the summary of everything that's in it. At the end of it, I'll tell you that we're going to talk about things you will look at. If you have been shown much mercy, if you realize you have been forgiven much for the things that you've done, and you're humbly walking with the Holy One according to his words, then there are certain things that you will not allow your eye to focus upon. They may pass before the eye, but it says don't look upon the nakedness of all these different things. And the modern English Bibles like to just ignore that, what the Hebrew says, and just say don't engage in sexual relations with, or don't engage in sexual immorality with. That misses the point. The point is sexual immorality starts with the eyes. It starts with what you allow yourself to look at and continue to look at and gaze at and stare at. Do not let your eyes focus and fix on the nakedness of your fellow man. That nakedness includes their physical body, their parts that are supposed to be covered, and the parts that you should not be staring at. Eyes up here, not eyes down here, as the culture likes to tell you. Eyes up here. Keep your eyes where they belong. That's what's going to tell you. That's one of the latter part, the last part of the book is about doing those things. But I want to tell you that there's a protocol in between chapter 16 and chapter 18 when that begins to take place. And it's found early in chapter 18. And I want to read it for you. May the Holy One open our eyes that we may see wondrous things from your Torah, Holy One. I'll begin with chapter 18, verse 1. The Holy One spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, as it would be in English, and say to them, I am the Holy One, your God. Do not do the things the people of the land of Egypt did, in which you sojourned, and do not do the things that the people of the land of Canaan do, where I am taking you, and do not follow their ways. I'm going to get back to that. Remember, we're talking about the things that were done by the people in the land of Egypt. We're not to do those. We're not to do the things that are being done by the people in the land of Canaan, where we're going. We're not to do those. We're to make separate and different the way we approach life and the way we behave. Now, that's the first line of this passage. That's chapter 18, verses 1 and 2 and 3. Then it says, verse 4, this is the secret to our success. This is the key to doing what carry out my laws and safeguard my decrees to follow. I am the Holy One, your God. And you are to observe my decrees. The Hebrew word is asa, to build my decrees and my laws, which man carry out and are to carry out, and by which he is to live. I am the Holy One. That's when he begins to talk about not gazing upon the nakedness. And nakedness can not only include just the physical body parts, but also the sin, the uncleanness, the things that we tend to focus on by virtue of the fact that we just can't look away because we now have eaten of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We only want to see the evil. Those are the things that are part of the nakedness. What happened? What did Adam and Hava feel? They felt they were naked because their sin was exposed. Well, that form of nakedness goes along with the physical nakedness of not having your body parts covered. So we have this idea. The Holy One has given us this key of success. I hope you're getting it. I hope this is very important to you. That in chapter 18, he's telling you in advance how to successfully get yourself prepared for Yom Kippur. In the interval that we have several months intervening, 5 months or so, better months than that, intervening, and we're going to go to a Yom Kippur, a day of national atonement, a day of national redemption, a day of judgment as we might think of it. What will we do over the course of time to prepare? He says, this is your path. This is your simple pathway. Do not follow the ways that are of the peoples of Egypt. Don't get into their dark occult viewpoint. Don't get into their focus upon afterlife, which is why they built the pyramids. Don't get into their fascination with the witchcraft and with spells and controlling and forcing other people to do what they want. There's manipulation and control. Don't get into the ways of the Egyptians. Don't force other people to do your work for you. Don't take advantage of other peoples. This is the ways of Canaan. The ways of Egypt. He says also do not do build the way of lifestyle, the way of the Canaanites. Don't be so fleshly. Don't be so caught up in your emotions and that you don't control them. Don't get caught up in your appetites and your urges the way they do. Don't apply superstitions and sacraments and ideas to and that kind of stuff. Stay focused on my words, he says. Stay focused on my words. He says specifically my ordinances and my laws and my decrees. He says walk in them. Follow them. Stay engaged with them moment by moment, day by day. That's the secret of our success. If we're going to encounter the higher levels of holiness, if we're going to be that free bird flying that does not get back into the mess again, if we're going to show the beauty and the majesty and represent the kingdom of heaven upon the earth, these are the secrets of our success. Well, it's time to go. Shabbat Shalom.